Um, you said you'd plan to come to Rochester. Do you know at this point when you might be coming?
Look, my schedule is packed this week, so I'm looking at probably about 2 weeks. My staff's working on the details now.
And if you would tell us why do you feel that you want to come here?
I want to meet with law enforcement. I want to meet with people I worked with for 40 years. I want to meet with the Border Patrol. I want to meet with ICE, HSI, Homeland Security Investigations, and I welcome to meet with the Rochester police officers because I think a message needs to be sent to the community that law enforcement should always back up law enforcement. They shouldn't be punished for doing so.
Did you, I know that you had, I don't know what kind of meeting you had, but you had a meeting with the union. Tell me a little bit about how that meeting went.
I think it was the day after that, or was it that morning when I found out what happened. I was on my way to Nashville at a law enforcement forum, and members of the Rochester Police Department were there. So it was kind of a coincidence I ran into them down there. And I just shared with them that I just sent a X post out supporting them and that I stand with them. And so it's kind of a happenstance meeting, but I told them at that meeting that I would come and do what I can to help the men and women of law enforcement up there to send a clear message to the mayor and if the chief, if need be, that law enforcement should always back up law enforcement in an emergency situation. It's, I can understand if someone don't want to do immigration work. We don't want anybody to be an immigration officer too, but we expect them to be law enforcement officers that will respond to a call for emergency assistance. We can agree to disagree on politics, but law enforcement backing up law enforcement should never be a question.
Let me ask you about that incident that happened that day. As you know, the city of Rochester is a sanctuary city, and the mayor called the assistance provided by RPD a violation of city policy. And those officers that were involved have since had to go through retraining. Should they have been called in to assist?
Absolutely. I mean, the officer that called for assistance was outnumbered. Didn't know anything could happen on the streets. I was a cop, and anything could happen on the street. He was outnumbered. He asked for assistance from other law enforcement officers. And as far as violating sanctuary policy, I think what happened there was the mayor violated, just the fact of public safety. Law enforcement officers should always respond to law enforcement officers. The Border Patrol and ICE have never refused a call for assistance. These are well-trained officers, and if someone's in harm's way or someone calls for emergency help, we are always there. That's the way it should be. Politics should be taken away from emergency situations like that. Now, if they would have called to help them issue an immigration violation or do a worksite enforcement operation, I totally understand where PD, might not want to choose to do that, or a chief, saying, no, we're not going to do that. But when you got an emergency call for assistance, no chief should, say no to that. No mayor should say no to that. The men and women of ICE, the men and women of the Border Patrol are trying to make their communities safer. We've been clear from day one of the Trump administration, we're targeting public safety threats and national security threats. We're trying to help you make your community safer. It should be a partnership and not an argument.
Um, what was the emergency?
That the officer was outnumbered. I don't have all the facts, but my information was the officer had more people than he could handle. And they weren't opening the doors. So he asked for assistance to come to the scene and control the scene.
Have you had a chance to watch the police body worn camera? The
No.
video? No. I was going to ask you about that and see maybe what you may have seen in that video or what you've been told about what happened at that particular scene. But in watching the video, it looks as if the Rochester police officers take the lead there and that Border Patrol kind of defers to them in that case. Is that the way it should go?
No, I don't think that's the way it happened at all. What happened on that stop was the Title 8 enforcement. The Border Patrol agent was the guy in the scene who enforces the immigration law. The other officers were assisting. The only one with the authority to make arrests right there were the under Title 8 immigration law was the Border Patrol agent or HSI agent. It wasn't police. Police are there for a backup measure only, and to respond to a call for emergency.
But the Rochester police officers are the ones who are trying to get the individuals out of the van, and they're the ones who actually put the handcuffs on these individuals. It almost looks like it was the Border Patrol kind of backed away and let them do those particular duties.
Law enforcement officers were there to help control the scene, secure the scene, make sure everybody's safe. That's what they did. And that's what they should have done.
You said you're going to concentrate on public safety threats and national security threats when this began. But other than being in the country illegally, why were these particular individuals targeted?
I don't know. I don't know why the Border Patrol agent stopped, but Border Patrol agent, they're enforcing immigration law, a little different from ICE. ICE interior enforcement operation were concentrating on public safety threats and national security threats. Border Patrol is enforcing immigration law on the border. So that was a Border Patrol operation, Border Patrol call. So Border Patrol is doing their job as we've explained from day one, we're going to secure the border. The prioritization will always be public safety threats, national security threats in the interior of the United States, but border security is important. You don't have to be a criminal to be arrested by the United States Border Patrol near the United States border. That's all part about securing the border, and that's why you have a 94% decline in illegal crossings. Border Patrol agent was doing his job.
Any idea where those individuals are now, what has happened to them, and what the process will be for them?
I asked for that information. I'm told some are in detention, some are facing deportation. So it's a case by case, but it's also a criminal investigation ongoing. So it depends on who the individual is and where the status is now. But it was a part of criminal investigation. Some are detention, some are being set up for deportation.
Do you have a message for the mayor of Rochester and the police chief? And the police chief said specifically that he was struck by the apparent lack of urgency by federal agents.
I'm shocked by any elected mayor or any chief of police that doesn't want law enforcement to respond to a call from law enforcement for emergency help. I'm shocked by that. I'm shocked to the fact that if his officers needed help and they got on the radio and asked for help, Border Patrol or ICE would not hesitate to go to the scene and help them and do whatever they can within the rules of engagement. So we can Monday morning quarterback this all we want, but what I've said from day one is put politics aside. When there's an emergency call for assistance, everybody should roll. Anybody wearing a badge and gun should roll, because that situation can turn bad quickly. We just had a Border Patrol agent. We just buried a Border Patrol agent in Vermont on the border of New York and Vermont, shot dead making a car stop. Anything happened in a car stop. If the chief of police came up through the ranks, he understands anything can happen to a vehicle stop. This officer's outnumbered. He asked for help. That's what these officers did. They did the right thing. They shouldn't be penalized for it. And I remind the mayor, sanctuaries are sanctuaries for criminals. Bottom line. And I don't want to hear this argument that, well, we're a welcoming city. We want victims and witnesses of crime, if they're illegal aliens or immigrant community, to feel welcome to come to the police department and not have the fear we're working with ICE. That is just garbage. Victims and witnesses of a crime don't want the bad guy back in the neighborhood either. And when you force, when you're a sanctuary city, you don't work with ICE and release public safety threats back in the community rather than calling ICE, that puts more ICE officers in the community. That means more collateral arrests will be made, because we'll find the bad guy in that community. Many times he with others. If there's others who in the United States illegally may not be a priority criminal target, but they're coming too. Because I'm not going to tell ICE officers ignore the OT check and ignore the immigration law. We want you to turn your back and walk away from that. They're not going to do it. So sanctuary policies result in numerous things. They make the community unsafe when you release a public safety threat back in the public without giving them to ICE to take them out of the community. You put the community at greater risk. You put law enforcement at greater risk. You put the alien at greater risk, because the street arrest, anything happened during street arrest that wouldn't happen in the safety and security of a jail, taking custody there. And I had the chief and the mayor go to the immigrant community, ask them a simple question. Would you rather have ICE and Border Patrol operating in your community or the jail? They're going to say the jail, because the immigrant community, even though many may be here illegally, most are God-fearing family people. They don't want predators in their neighborhood either. They don't want someone that's been arrested for DUI 5 times driving through the neighborhood either. So work with ICE, help us protect the community from public safety threats.
Did this incident that happened here put Rochester more on your radar screen now?
Any sanctuary city is on my radar screen. I've been fighting sanctuary cities for a long time. And we can go over case after case after case where someone committed a serious crime in that sanctuary city that was preventable because they're in a county lockup at some point, but the community wouldn't work with them, not the community, the local jurisdiction, whether the sheriff or the chief would not cooperate with us. So the public safety threat went back into the public and recommitted offense. Anybody can Google recidivism rates. Recidivism rates were high. So every sanctuary city is on my radar. It's on the radar of the President of the United States. It's on the radar of Attorney General Pam Bondi. We will litigate sanctuary cities. We will sue sanctuary cities. We'll look at pulling federal funding from sanctuary cities because sanctuary cities are sanctuaries for criminals. These people are in the United States illegal. Bottom line, it's not okay to be in this country legally. We got millions of people standing in line, taking their test, doing the background investigation, doing the entire vetting process. They're standing in the back line while millions of people under Joe Biden entered this country unlawfully, were released into this country unlawfully. They cheated the system. Everybody can say, well, all these people came across were asylum seekers. Here's what you need to know. 9 out of 10 of those asylum seekers will end up with their order removal because they don't qualify for asylum. It was asylum fraud. There are thousands of people in the world who really do need our protection for asylum because they really are escaping fear and persecution from their home government because of race, religion, political affiliation. And guess what? They're standing in the back of the line because the millions of people that commit asylum fraud on our border. It's not okay to enter this country legally. It's a crime. It's not okay to be in this country legally. It's a violation of law. It's not okay to knowingly hire an illegal alien. This administration is going to enforce the laws on the books. We're not making this up. We're using the laws that were passed by Congress, enacted by Congress, and signed by the president to not only secure the border, but to focus on the criminal aliens, the public safety threats, the national security threats that are in this nation. And look, if you're in the country legally, you're not off the table. We're talking about prioritization. We'll look for the worst first.
Will you be putting more resources in Rochester specifically?
Yes.
And when will that happen to you? Do you know?
Well, we'll see. But I can't say everything on open air, but here's the problem. If we were able to get in the county jails, if the police would work side by side with us on this, it'd take one agent and arrest one bad guy. But when he's released back in the community, now a whole team has to go for officer safety reasons. A team of 5 to 6 people to cover the back door, cover the side door, back up the officer, because now we got to arrest him on his turf. We have access to who knows what weapons. So we need more officers to do that operation. So we lose the efficiency of let's say we're working with a jail in Florida or Texas where it takes one agent walking to jail, arrest one bad guy in the safety and security of jail. But when you release them back in the public, now I got to send a whole team for officer safety reasons and find them. So it's going to require more officers in sanctuary cities. Sanctuary cities at general, we have to apply more resources and more agents there because of the fact we got to go in the community. We got to have more officers for officer safety reasons. So Rochester wants to be a sanctuary city. They're going to get exactly what they don't want. More officers in the community and more collateral arrests because you forced us into the community.
If you need more officers, do you think they were equipped to do this stop a couple of weeks ago?
Every trained officer is trained how to do a vehicle stop and how to put people in custody.
As far as identifying serious threats, have you identified any serious threats in the Rochester region? Gang members, drug dealers, that kind of thing?
Yes.
Can you be more specific or provide any insight into that?
I don't have the data in front of me, but I know criminal alien threats have been arrested in the Rochester area.
Any gang members?
I don't have that sort of data in front of me, but I've reached out and asked the questions. Have we had public safety threats, illegal aliens arrested in the Rochester area? And I was told yes. When I get to Rochester, I'll have all that data in front of me so I can talk to local law enforcement about how ICE has helped to make that community safer by their operations.
Do you hope to meet with the mayor or the police chief while you're here?
I'd be willing to. I mean, if they want to meet, I'm more happy to meet with them. I hope we can come to some sort of agreement that if you don't want to be an immigration officer, that's fine. I don't want you to be an immigration officer. I want you to be a law enforcement officer that responds to emergency call from another law enforcement officer. That's all I'm looking for.